Anchoring bias. How your first impressions shapes every decision. Did you know your first impressions could dictate every decision you make? Anchoring bias is a psychological trap that tethers your choices to the first piece of information you encounter, whether it's relevant or not. So let's unlock the secrets behind the mind game and learn to break free from its grip. Let's dive in. Now remember, this is education mixed with entertainment. So with that being said, let's analyze this train of thought accordingly. So what is anchoring bias? This is a good place to start. So anchoring bias is a cognitive bias where the first piece of information, known as the anchor, heavily influences subsequent judgments and decisions. For instance, imagine a restaurant menu listing a lobster dish for £80 alongside a £30 steak. The lobster acts as an anchor, making the steak seem like a bargain, even if the steak is overpriced elsewhere. This psychological effect skews your perception of value. Recognizing anchoring bias is the first step to making more rational decisions. So let's talk about some real life examples of anchoring bias, because anchoring bias is everywhere. Imagine a job interview where the first candidate sets the bar with an exceptional resume. Every other candidate is subconsciously compared to that anchor, even if they're equally or more qualified. Similarly, real estate agents often show higher priced homes first to make others seem affordable. These examples highlight how the first piece of information you encounter shapes your decisions, often without you realizing it. Recognizing these patterns empowers you to make smarter choices. So how do we counter anchoring bias? It's a good question. So breaking free from anchoring bias, it starts with awareness. Challenge the first number or idea presented by seeking additional information and comparisons. In negotiations, avoid revealing your position too early and focus on objective criteria instead. Practicing pausing to evaluate choices logically rather than emotionally. By questioning the anchor and expanding your perspective, you regain control over your decisions and resist being swayed by irrelevant or misleading initial information. So anchoring bias is a silent yet powerful influence that impacts your decisions in ways you may not notice. From financial choices to personal interactions, it can cloud judgment and limit objectivity. However, by recognizing its presence, questioning initial information, and approaching decisions critically, you can minimize its impact. Awareness is your greatest tool in breaking free from this mental trap. Also, having an objective approach is crucial. And try to understand someone's strategy, because it's logical that if someone is trying to sell you a car, for example, they may use anchoring bias as a way to persuade you. So remember, your first impression doesn't have to be your final decision. Stay curious, stay informed, and reclaim your ability to think independently. Now, because I want you to think as opposed to telling you what to think, here are 3 questions to further understand anchoring bias. Question number 1. How does the initial anchor shape perceptions in different contexts? So anchoring bias operates across diverse areas, from pricing in retail to salary negotiations and even jury verdicts. So understanding how the anchor sets a mental benchmark in varying situations can help identify when you're being influenced. For instance, how does anchoring bias affect the perceived value of luxury items or influence political opinions? Question 2. Why is anchoring bias so difficult to overcome? Despite knowing about anchoring bias, people often fall prey to it because of its subconscious nature. So exploring why our brains latch onto the first piece of information can reveal deeper cognitive processes such as the reliance on shortcuts to make decisions. And finally, question 3. What strategies effectively minimize the impact of anchoring bias? So identifying practical methods like delaying decisions, seeking independent data, or questioning initial assumptions can counteract this bias and improve judgment in critical situations. So that's the end of today's journey. Now, if you want to support the channel, like, subscribe, and watch the content. And with that being said, I sincerely hope this video has provided value.